right. Well, everybody welcome. Thank you for signing up. And so today I'm going to be doing a lot of screen sharing with you all because I think it's easier to kind of connect when we can kind of see the same thing and you know what I'm talking about. And I'm also going to go and kind of show you some things on our Bonner Wiki, which is easy to see like on the internet. So we're going to start this up. So I'm going to share this presentation. So I want to check one more time. Everybody can see this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so welcome to our very first Bonner Foundation webinar series targeting senior interns. So I was a senior intern myself at Ursinus College, and so getting to support you all is like a really special project for me. So in this webinar, I created 3 goals, and you guys can pop in at any time to add anything that you would like. So here are our goals. So 1, I hope that when you leave this webinar that you have a lot of information about the roles and responsibilities of senior interns across the network. So you have an idea of what it looks like to be a senior intern, not just at your campus, but in different Bonner programs across our network. 2, I hope that you understand how to use the tools that I show you today to further define your role in your Bonner program and maybe improve the student leadership structures that are present in your Bonner program already. And 3, I hope you get to take in and learn a lot about different resources and information that's available to you all as senior interns this year and how to utilize them effectively. And so I would encourage you all to share any of the information that you learned today, share it with other peers in your program, share it with other people that you know in the network, your Bonner staff. Please feel free to do that. So those are our 3 goals for today. And I wanted to establish some webinar rules of thumb. And so I don't think this will really be a problem because I think that you all have dialed in via your computer. But this second bullet, mute your microphone unless you're speaking, that comes in because when people call in, a lot of times there's like background noise, and then that kind of disrupts the recording, and then you can't hear other people. And so that's one of the only reasons why I asked you to do that. And I wanted to jump back to the first, because muting your microphone doesn't mean that I don't want you to interact with me or interact in this webinar. Please feel free to ask questions and in the chat box, or just speak out and ask questions or add your own feedback at any time during the webinar. And also, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, please feel free to send me an email with extra questions or information or resources. And last, like I said, this webinar is recorded, is recording right now, and it's going to be posted on the Bonner Wiki, and I'll show you where it's posted afterwards so that you can also share that with people who couldn't be here today, and also so that you can go back and reference it later. So those are our webinar rules of thumb. And so I wanted to start by telling you what we're going to cover today. So we have 1 hour together, and I hope to cover 4 things. 1, roles and responsibilities of senior interns across the network, challenges of being a senior intern, and then in accordance with that, what strategies there are to meet those challenges and overcome them. And then last, what resources are available to you throughout the year. So does that make sense to you guys? Do you feel good with that? Okay. Cool. So first up, talking about senior interns. So many of you guys are senior interns, so most of you all probably already know this, but I think sometimes it's helpful to give a little bit of context as to what the senior intern role looks like across the network. So normally, being a senior intern is your primary service placement. You would serve as a senior intern in all of the multiple capacities, 8 to 10 hours a week. And it is encouraged that there's 1 senior intern per every 15 Bonners. So that means, say you have a 60 people in your Bonner program, you would have 4 interns. It's recommended that's the ratio. So I will be using the terminology Bonner Senior Intern, but this webinar is also for student leaders. So I know I asked in the sign up form, like, are you a part of your Bonner leadership team? Are you a student leader in your program in general? And so I'll be using Bonner Senior Intern, but feel free to also use all of these resources for other student leadership positions. And so when I say senior intern, most of the time, though most senior interns are actually seniors, fourth years, there are also a lot of junior interns, sometimes sophomore interns, and a lot of the time we recommend that they're juniors or seniors just because you have a knowledge of your Bonner program and you're really invested in it. And so we think those are some of the qualities that make really excellent senior interns. So some other general guidelines, senior interns often hold office hours within your civic engagement center or within your Bonner center so that students have easy access to you. Bonner staff does as well, and it's also just designated time that you'll be working on your responsibilities. So that's something to consider if you don't have it already. You often attend weekly staff meetings, so either with your own fellow interns or with the Bonner leadership team or with your Bonner staff. And you're a representative of the Bonner program and also your campus. So a lot of the times you all are like the key student leaders in your Bonner program, so you're really representing. And so those are just some general guidelines. And I would also like to note that all of the information that's included in this webinar is not just me, Sam, the Bonner Foundation, establishing them. Some are recommendations, but all of this information is gathered from real job descriptions, real data from senior intern positions in our network. So next, thinking about what responsibilities senior interns hold across the network. And so I know some of you all probably, you know your own role and what the senior intern role looks like on your campus, but let's look from a broader point of view. So I split up the senior intern responsibilities by like taking inventory of all of the different responsibilities that senior interns have at different campuses, and they actually fall into 10 different, I would call them categories or buckets. So senior interns often have a role with logistics. So this is BWebers, this is logging hours, CLAs, keeping up with like advancing service placements, adding in training and enrichments. So that's logistics. That's often a large role. There's also the judiciary and accountability. So you all often are like the first people that respond to someone who's having, who might not be following all the rules, who might not be submitting all their hour logs on time. You are often the first people that reach out to those people. So you have a role in judiciary actions. Community partnerships, a lot of different senior interns have a role in doing site visits with community partners, helping with that student partner placements, and basically furthering and maintaining community partnerships. Campus engagement, and so senior interns have played a significant role in going out and creating partnerships with different departments and organizations on campus, because Bonners are not meant to only be service leaders in your program, but you're also supposed to be create a culture of service on campus as well. Student development, so this is often the first thing that people think of when you think of the senior intern role. This means like you're helping to plan your class meetings. You serve as like helping to create the training calendar. You do a lot of the programming, that type of thing. So student development is a huge piece, helping students develop along the developmental pathway. Community building, this is another huge piece because as you all know, an important piece of the Bonner program is not that you're talking about important issues and reflection and service, but also building a community within your program. And so a lot of the responsibilities that come under this category are things like creating a Bonner family structure so that people feel that sense of like community, or creating Bonner social events or coffee hours or Bonner lunches, Bonner dinners, that type of thing. Academic connection. So this is something that maybe senior interns go out and have a lot of interaction with the faculty. And so then they kind of help assist in community-based research, community-based learning. Data and assessment. So this category talks about how senior interns can have role in kind of looking at like social media and seeing what type of statistics you can pull from that, how many views you have, analyzing statistics and how many people are interacting with the things that you put out. But this could also be thinking about the impact that your Bonner program has on campus or in the community. So this is, I think this is a newer responsibility as well, and something that you all can consider. Fundraising, so this is also something that is kind of newer as well. So this often is a senior intern helping your Bonner director or Bonner staff secure grants and kind of help with fundraising activities. And then last, we have communications and social media. So the responsibility of maintaining your Bonner Facebook, Instagram, doing marketing and PR. And so these are all of like the big responsibilities that I kind of, so you can think of them kind of as themes or categories of responsibilities that senior interns have. And so one thing that I want you all to think about is what roles, what responsibilities do you have, and where do they fall in these categories? If you're part of a senior intern team, how many of these responsibilities do you fulfill, and what needs do you have? So I have a little exercise that I'm going to ask you to do after the webinar, and that can be shared with everybody. But that's a question to think about. And so in regards, so those are all of the responsibilities. Oh man, it's going to make me go through all these. Sorry about that. Well, here they are again, in case you didn't get them the first time. So now thinking about leadership structure. So most of the time, there's more than one intern per intern team, part of student leadership. And so today we're talking specifically about senior interns, but of course this also applies to Bonner leadership teams, BLTs. And so thinking about your intern leadership structure, I'm going to share with you 3 different structures that are common throughout the network. And as I'm explaining these, think about which structure you have on your campus and which one kind of appeals to you and for what reason. So this first leadership structure is example 1, interns split all responsibilities. So these little circles represent, I use the example of a 4-person intern team, and this long bar of blues and greens represents all the responsibilities from the ones that I listed before. And so in this leadership structure, interns split all of their responsibilities. So it's not, so every one of them has a role in like BWebers and logistics management. I had an example down here where like intern 1 is the person who inputs training and enrichments. Intern 2 approves the CLAs. Intern 3 approves hour logs. Intern 4 advances service positions. So they all have a role in BWebers, and they all have a role in student development and facilitating class meetings. So maybe, like I said in an example, interns rotate facilitating class meetings. So intern 1 might facilitate 1 week, and then the next week it's intern 2, the next week intern 3, the next week intern 4. So this is one leadership structure where the interns split all their responsibilities. One of the challenges with this structure is that a lot of the time delegation doesn't happen super clearly. And so one of the challenges with this structure is that sometimes 1 or 2 interns actually end up doing a bulk of the work because it's not delegated correctly. And sometimes people think like, oh, like someone else will do it because we're all splitting different things. And so if you're going with this structure, it's really important for you to delegate and hold each other accountable. So next, example 2. So interns split responsibilities by cohort, class, or family. And so This example shows our 4 interns, and then intern 1 does all of the responsibilities for the first year class. So say for their designated class or family, they handle all of the BWeber stuff, so they help them with, they approve all of their CLAs and their hours. They facilitate all of like the first year class meetings. They do informal one-on-ones with all of the first year class, and they deal with like accountability and judiciary responses. So this is another way to split up responsibilities. So you all have many responsibilities, but they're limited to a specific group. So this could also be a family. So I know like at Ursinus College where I went, each of our interns was like the parent of a family. And so like as a parent for me, I did all of like the social activities for my family, but also all the BWebers. So it's just a way to delegate responsibilities. So that's another way. So a challenge with this is that sometimes you can there can be a disconnect between the interns because you're all doing different things. And so, and sometimes there's a disconnect between your Bonner peers, like all the people in your Bonner program, and the interns, because like the 3rd year class doesn't really interact with intern 1 at all. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the challenges with this leadership structure. Last, we have example 3, which is interns split responsibilities and each have specialized roles. And so this way, it's like intern 1 handles all of the logistics. So they're the person who does all BWeber stuff. Intern 2 does community partnerships. Intern 3 does student development. Intern 4 does community building. And in this way, like you'll see on the next page, everybody has a very specialized role, and so everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. But at the same time, it's really a challenge of this leadership structure is that since you all have specialized roles, sometimes you're not all connected to what each other are doing. So that's really important when you come together for staff meetings to continue to connect about all of these things. And another challenge is that you can't incorporate all of those responsibilities. So you know how I included 10 different responsibilities, like responsibility categories. This one only has 4. So it's almost outrageous to think that you would have like a 10-person internship team. So thinking about that too. So which responsibility should you prioritize? But that doesn't mean that intern 3 can't have like 2 different responsibilities or 3. It's just specialized roles. And so thinking about this idea of specialized roles, some custom animation in here. I don't remember putting that in. So thinking about specialized roles, these again are the 10 categories, the big buckets of responsibilities that senior interns have shown throughout the network. And so I just wanted to go in and tell you some real examples of what specialized roles look like in our network. So in logistics, I've seen a logistics intern, so that's their specialized role, or administrative and technology intern, Bonner associate for administration. So for judiciary, there's like a judiciary committee lead. That's the specialized role that a senior intern plays. They're like the chair of the judiciary committee of students, and so that's one of their roles. Community partnerships. They're called community partner liaisons, a community development intern, community partnerships and recruitment, a student government association representative, so that's another senior intern role. And so the point of me telling you all these different roles, one, is to spark kind of like creativity in like, if you want to be the community partner liaison intern, you know, so one, it kind of sounds really professional. So one thing is like how to articulate your skills as a senior intern in the post-grad world. It's like the specialized roles sound really professional, so that's one thing. But 2, it also really specializes your function as a senior intern. And so I have examples, and these are all real specialized intern roles. Like each of these came from one of our 65 Bonner campuses. And so these are real examples. It's not like I'm making them up. And so each of these responsibility categories has a bunch of specialized roles that can fall within it. And so that's what I have about specialized roles and leadership structures. And I have a little bit of homework for you guys, in the sense that you can, I'm asking you guys to, after you're done with this webinar, to think about these questions. I'm not gonna test you, and I'm not gonna grade you or anything like that, but I'm asking you to think about these questions, and it's your action step after this webinar is over. So think about, are there needs in your program that aren't being met? So did I list some responsibilities that you're like, oh, actually our program could really use that? And so could you improve your delegation of those responsibilities? So maybe you really need someone to try and handle like judiciary actions. So how can you improve your delegation within your intern team or your Bonner leadership team to include those needs as well? So what leadership structure do you have right now? Of the three that I mentioned, or a different one that I didn't mention, which structure categorizes the one that you have the best, and what is the best way to optimize it? So is another leadership structure actually better for your team? So think about that. And then last, I wanted to show you the senior intern roles and responsibilities. So this is a brand new resource. I actually finished it probably 30 minutes before this webinar. So brand new. And so if you click on that link, it'll take you to this handout resource. So basically this is roles and responsibilities. Let me make sure you're actually seeing what I see. There we go. Okay, so it'll take you to this screen. And so this is your resource. Can everybody see it? Okay, cool. So it goes through a little bit. So this is overall guidelines. So this is a little bit about what I covered earlier. And then qualifications. So these are some things that maybe you're looking to recruit the next senior interns. I know you probably don't want to think about that yet. However, you can think about some of these qualifications if you want to add anything. And then what's really important is this master list of senior intern responsibilities. So I'm going to explain this little paragraph here. This says it in like Word format, but I'm going to tell you that basically this is like a master comprehensive list, you'll see here, of all of the responsibilities that senior interns hold in the network somehow. I don't think there's not one program at all that holds every single one of these responsibilities. It's just a master sheet. And so how this is designed as a resource is there's some instructions here, but basically it's like, look through all of these responsibilities. The bolded titles tell you like the category of responsibility that I described earlier. So like logistics, communication. And so the instructions are, you would go through this with like, just you as an intern, with your Bonner leadership team, with your staff. You would mark which responsibilities are completed by senior interns. And so the instructions say like, use different colors or symbols to mark the check boxes. So maybe you'll mark all the ones that are already completed by senior interns in red. Mark which responsibilities are completed by Bonner leadership team members. You can mark those in blue. And mark which responsibilities or categories are needs of your program. So basically this will serve as an inventory of all the student leadership responsibilities represented in your program. And so you could go through and do this and be like, oh yeah, senior interns do this, shade. Actually, we really need someone to do communications, and so this would be a need. And you'd go through, and after you go through all of these responsibilities, you really have a good idea of what your Bonner program does and what your Bonner program still needs. And now, at the end, you have the opportunity to think about how your leadership structure can meet all of those needs. So these questions, like of the responsibilities marked as needs of your program, which do you prioritize? So which are the most important for you to implement in the next year? And can be designated to senior interns or BLT. And then this gives you a little bit of room to kind of brainstorm that out. So how is your leadership structure currently organized? If you notice, this is basically the questions I asked in your little homework assignment. So how is it currently organized, and how can you alter your structure to incorporate these prioritized needs? And so here I include the like 3 potential leadership structures that I just explained to you. And I also included a link to the presentation that I'm showing you right now. So this is a resource that you all can use, that you can share and adapt as well. But it's basically like a big master sheet, like a cheat sheet as to what senior interns do and what you can do and how to improve it. Does that make sense? Yeah, so hopefully that's helpful. And it's even if you don't do the exercise, it's also just something like, wow, like look at all of these different items that senior interns do in our network. Is there anything else that maybe I can add to my report? So maybe you're the logistics intern, but you're like, wow, I don't actually do like, I don't actually train other staff and students. Maybe that's something I should add, or maybe that's something that's important. So, so that's a great resource for you all to use. So I'm gonna pop back to our presentation here. And so next I want to talk a little bit about strategies on how to start the year strong. So I know we're in mid-September, and so you guys have already started your post-orientation. You probably had your first couple Bonner meetings, but I just wanted to talk about a couple strategies on how to really jumpstart your year. And so the way that I structured this is that I have 4 slides that each start with a challenge that senior interns face. And then I'll combat those challenges with strategies to overcome them. So our first one, my peers don't know what I do. So it's like, so maybe you feel like underappreciated, maybe students don't reach out to you because they don't know what you do. And so some strategies to combat this challenge: share your role with your Bonner peers. And it seems really obvious, but this is a really important piece of like building respect. And so first, one suggestion, one strategy is to allot time during orientation or during your all Bonner meetings to describe your role. Because a lot of the time, especially younger students, like first year Bonners, they just see you as a student leader, but they don't really realize all the things you do to keep the program running and smooth. And so allot time during that, and then during that time, allow for question and answer. So allow for them to ask you questions like why don't you go to a service site? Or what do you do during office hours? So that type of thing. So allow for open dialogue about your role, and also allow for suggestions as well. Make sure you have an accurate job description. And so I know a lot of the times you're like elected or selected to be Bonner interns, but you don't actually have a job description of what you do, because you guys do a lot. And so this is really important, like I said, in post-grad life, because as you're trying to articulate the skills that you've gained as a senior intern, this job description can be really helpful in helping you write your resume. You can send it to future employers. You can use it to gain internships, because you do a lot. So make sure you have an accurate job description. And if you don't have a job description, work with your Bonner staff and fellow interns to actually develop that. And by doing this, sharing your role with your Bonner peers and really investing in that time to let them know what you do, it really enhances respect for you as a senior intern and sets expectations that you are a senior intern, these are the things you do, and this is what I expect of you as peers. So second, it encourages peers to apply for the senior intern or leadership role. So I know a lot of programs like the senior intern role is like coveted and it's really competitive, but in other programs I know that nobody wants to take on the senior intern role. Maybe because they don't want to give up their service site, but by articulating what you do and how important it is, it can also gather some like inspiration and get people to really want to apply for it. And also really understand what it entails. So you don't have people that apply for it and then get it and then don't realize all that it encompasses. So that's one challenge and one strategy. 2, it's really hard holding my Bonner friends accountable. And so I've heard this countless times where it's like, being that disciplinarian is really hard. And so a lot of times people don't log their hours, they're not attending meetings. And so it's really hard because you are also friends. And so how do you really combat that? So one of the strategies which is connected to the first. Make sure you establish expectations and boundaries from the beginning, but also know that you can be friends with your peers and still be a really effective senior intern. You don't have to necessarily be one or the other. And so it relies on establishing these expectations early. So like I said, during orientations or one of your first Bonner meetings. So if you haven't done it during orientation, think about incorporating it into your next all Bonner meeting or class meetings. And last, establish boundaries. So some of my very best friends were in Bonner. And so one of the things that I've seen really effective is just, and this is simple, but it actually does work a lot of the time. It's like only use email to communicate a bit like accountability, or email just to talk about like business matters. And then reserve like your phone calls and your text interactions for personal use. So that it's like when one of your friends is receiving an email from you, that's kind of like a little reprimanding, they know that it's all business and that it's not like right after a text that's like, hey, do you want to grab coffee? You know, that type of thing. So that's another strategy. 3, I just hate being the bad guy. So this also goes back to disciplinary actions and how hard that is. So the strategy is to use your role as a student to your advantage. So a lot of the time, seeing like you being a student leader is sometimes, you might feel like that's actually a disadvantage because like they don't think of me as a Bonner staff member. Like maybe my Bonner coordinator should just reach out to them and do it. But you're a really important piece of this because you're a peer. So you're relatable. You're in the same position as them. You've literally been there, you know? And so there's that respect level there. And sometimes you can get on a different level with your peers that your coordinators or directors can't. So use that to your advantage. And when you're talking to someone, like if they're really behind on hours or if they're really just they have bad attendance or things like that, suggest realistic steps to progression. So so come prepared with like, so in order for you to meet your hours, let's work out how many hours you have to meet for the rest of the week by week. So if you're down like 100 hours for the next like 4 weeks, you need 25 hours per week. Can you do that? Let's create a plan. Let's meet together and have like every Monday we'll meet and then we'll discuss the plan for the week. So that last bullet point, rely on respect and trust. So rely on your relationship with your Bonner peers and let them lean on you. Offer to meet informally and help them through the process. So being the bad guy, being a disciplinarian doesn't mean that you can't support them through that process. And I have one last one, which is, I don't know how to build trust with my peers. So this is something I think that is often overlooked. It's like, I'm a senior intern, like I have to hold people accountable and sometimes a lot of times your peers put you on a different level. And so sometimes it's hard. They don't know how to come to you with problems because you might reprimand them or, you know, like that type of thing. So sometimes there's those thoughts. However, it's really important for you to build trust with your peers for the reasons that I listed before. Like you can help them through disciplinary issues. They'll come to you and you can support them through those processes. So basically the strategy is invest in community building. So it's really important for you to plan these Bonner social events, but also to attend and just get to know the rest of your Bonners. Invest in informal one-on-one meetings. This is really important where sometimes it's impossible if you have like a huge Bonner program, like 100 Bonners, but maybe invest in that case, like invest in meeting with like half of them. And then your other intern meets with the other half like throughout the whole year. But these could be as easy as like, hey, let's meet for coffee. Like, how are you doing? And last, lead by example. So if you want a Bonner program that's really invested in Bonner love and community and social justice, then lead by example. Lead by example in classes and your emails even and all of your interactions. So that's 3 strategies to build trust and community. And so those are some of the strategies that I wanted to share with you. The next part is going to be about resources. So before I moved on to that, do you guys have any other questions or suggestions about this? Anybody want to weigh in? No? That's okay, no problem. So our next piece are resources available. So I kind of put this on here on this list, not so you guys can read it right now because I'm going to go through each of them, but for you guys to see the wealth of resources that are available to you. And so, one, the Senior Intern Wiki page, and not just the Senior Intern Wiki page, but the Bonner Wiki in general. So bonner.pbworks.com, that's really, really important. So I'm going to exit out of this presentation to show you what our Bonner Wiki looks like. So when you click in to the link bonner.pbworks.com, it'll take you to this page, the Bonner Wiki homepage. And you look at it and you're like, oh my God, that's a lot of information, but how do I use it? How do I find what I need? And so a lot of the time, what you're gonna need is gonna come right here, Bonner Program Management, but there's these little headings here. So one, like take a look at the headings, and then each of these have links. So what I'm gonna show you is the Bonner Program Student Leadership. So that's right here. I'll zoom in a little bit. So under Bonner Program Staffing, because you guys are Bonner staff. So here's Bonner Student Leadership. And then here we have Bonner Leadership Teams, Bonner Congress, and Bonner Senior Interns. So click on Bonner Senior Interns, and you'll see this. This is the same structure for every one of our wiki pages. So there's an overview. So overview of whatever topic you clicked, guides. So guides to how to do things, like guides on how to recruit and select new Bonners, how to outline your role, so different resources here, orientation, that type of thing. So guides on how to do things. Campus examples, so basically it's like examples of what these roles look like across the network. So this one is all sort like real job descriptions from some of our Bonner campuses. So you can click on this, like you can click on Berry College, and then this is exactly what these are how their responsibilities are delegated, 2017-18. So that's a real example. You can check those out and see what they do. And they also have like senior intern structure. So how your senior intern team fits with your Bonner leadership team and how student leadership works together. And so this gives a frame of reference of like Siena College has 60 Bonner leaders and they have 6 program associates or 6 senior interns a year, you know? So it just gives you a frame of reference on what senior interns look like across the network. And then the last tab is documents to download. And so these are things that you can, handouts, handbooks, presentations that you can download, use, and adapt. So one, this is Bonner staffing. So it goes through presentation on the Bonner staff, so that's you. So this is our presentation that we're using right now today. So people can look at this. And then there's the Bonner Senior Handbook, which goes through a lot of information, background, context on senior intern and different resources. And then this is the roles and responsibilities. This is this handout right here. And so all of the resources that I'm telling you about, they're on the wiki. And so you can always refer back to this if you can't find something. It's most often on the senior intern page. And so that's just the senior intern wiki page, but we have those 4 tabs for all of these different pages. So say you like want to plan your like training calendar and you're like, oh, I want some workshops. Here are all of our workshops that are created for you to use. So it's like, say you want to learn about how to talk about differently abled people. Here is a 60-minute trainer guide that you can facilitate at your like first year meeting. So there's a lot of different resources there. And so I'm gonna jump back here to our presentation. And so that's the Bonner Wiki. This is the senior intern guide. So I also list all the links here. So if you're just looking through the presentation, you can click and find it. And so this is our guide that has been distributed at like our Bonner meetings. And so this includes, like I said, like context about how the senior intern role came to play, responsibilities, different tools, like how to facilitate, things like that. So that's a resource open to you. We also have the Student Leadership Hub. So this is also, so this link will take you right to it. It's also on our wiki. And so as you can see, it's very bare right now. I literally just started this Leadership Hub about, started this week, but I wanted to tell you guys about it because it's new and because it's going to be getting updated, and I think it's really exciting. So there's a bunch of headings here, and basically they're showing all the different like resources that will be available to you. So this hub is basically for student leaders to come and be like, wow, like I really want to know about like the student developmental model and all of that. It's like an annotated link to the bigger wiki. So like I said, that big wiki is really complicated sometimes. It's a lot of information. And so this is kind of an annotated wiki for you. So it's like things that are relevant to you. And so it makes it a little easier to navigate the wiki. And so that's not ready yet, but you can check it out and I'll be updating it. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Next we have, which is also new, is a senior intern email listserv. So basically the listserv is basically a full email list of all the senior interns, all the 2017-18 senior interns in our network. And so you'll receive an email like this, either today or tomorrow, to invite you to join the listserv. And how it works is, say you have like a question like, you know, we really want to go on an alternative break, but I don't really know where to go. This is an email where you can just be like, hey, senior interns, do you guys have any suggestions on alternative break programs to go to collaborate with? And then at this point, everybody who's on this email list, which will be all of you, can reply and give that person information, resources. So it's a really great resource for like quick, easy access to information. And so I'll send this invitation to you. You can unsubscribe at any point in time. And there's some expectations that you only use it for senior intern related questions. And so there's some expectations that come with it so it doesn't spam your email as well. We have a Bonner staff listserv, so all your coordinators and directors, and it's been extremely effective and useful. So we figured this would be a really great resource for you. So look out for this invitation. The Bonner Weekly Update from noreply@bwebers.com or bwebers.org. This should come to you every Wednesday morning, and it has all sorts of information that's really useful to you, like the senior intern webinar is on here. You can also access it by just logging into bwebers, and all of them are on your homepage as well. So definitely look out for that. And so we also have social media. So social media, we're really trying to amp up and use it for people to get to know other people in the network, to share articles, that type of thing. So we have Bonner on Facebook. We have the Bonner Love friend. So friend us, and we'd love to connect with you. And we have the Bonner Foundation page, which you can like. We have Bonner on SlideShare. So we have tons of presentations that you can use and search and use for yourself. We have Bonner on YouTube, so look for us on YouTube. And these are our other social media outlets. So the Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. So we also have a Snapchat takeover, and so you can apply to showcase your campus by snapping, doing like the Snap stories on Bonner Love. And so there's a lot of different ways to stay connected and ways that they can be resources to you. So last, we have some national meetings where we gather together physically. A lot of the time our resources are not physical, they're virtual, they're electronic, they're on the internet, but we do meet together face-to-face. So we have our Bonner Congress meeting, which is coming up in October. We have the Bonner Directors Meeting, so all the Bonner staff come together in November. But we also have the Impact Conference, which is like over 600 people from not just Bonner schools, but any schools that are engaging civic engagement. They come, and that's another way where you can connect with Bonners and senior interns, because we always have a little Bonner gathering at Impact as well. And then Summer Leadership Institute, which is both students and staff, and we all come together, and there is a senior intern track there for you all. So there's a lot of different ways to support you throughout the year. And last, we have the Foundation webinar series. So this is the first in a series of webinars designed to support you as senior interns this year. So what's coming up in October 2017, we're going to run a webinar on how to run an effective meeting. In January, who's next, how to effective strategies for Bonner recruitment and selection. What's next, how to translate your skills and opportunities into pursuing a career after you graduate, and how to use your Bonner experience to really push you to the next level. And then in March, we're gonna host a webinar about how to pass the baton. Basically, how do you transition your leadership from you as senior intern into the next senior interns. And so look out for those. And I wanted to end with, if you guys have any questions, either now or later, please feel free to reach out to me via email or call, and look out for this webinar posted on the Bonner Wiki, as well as different resources that are posted up there. So thank you all for joining me today. Please feel free to reach out with questions. You can ask right now if you have any, or feel free to reach out to me. But thank you for joining me for the Senior Intern webinar. I really appreciate it. I have a chat here. Oh, thank you. Cool. Well, do you guys have any questions right now? If not, all right. Cool.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, I hope it was useful to you.
Very useful.
All right. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Honor love.
Honor love.